With this session update, I'm Shannon Lurkey. The Senate Finance Committee met to consider Senate File 3, a bill that would reduce state agency budgets by 5% each year through 2025. Here are some highlights from that meeting.
We are asking MMB to establish a base that is 5% lower, and committees will receive their targets, and then agencies can work within those parameters. Or we could unilaterally cut 5% from each budget after the February forecast. This could be programs too, and FTEs, and so on. As you all know, to date, at this point, we get the February forecast a week from this Friday, but right now we're looking at a minus $882 million in FY 22-23 and 1.623 in FY 24 and 25. So members, this Senate File 3 is basically the conversation, and it is asking our agencies, our commissions, all of the above that receive state funding to look at their expenses, their administrative expenses and operating expenses, to make sure that they can do better.
I have significant concerns with Senate File 3, which would annually reduce the state agency operating budgets by 5% each year from fiscal year 22 through 25. This bill fails to constructively address the unprecedented challenges that we have today and sets up a budget forecast that's not really rooted in reality. The agency operating budgets enable the executive branch to provide critical services to Minnesotans in accordance to laws passed by the legislature. You know, this is about forecast and budget. The budget, the legislature has the rights and responsibilities to pass the budget, but the forecast is a starting point. It's a reference point, and it's hard to relate to sometimes. So I'm going to use a quick analogy. Most of us here have bought a car. When we buy the car, we expect it to provide reliable transportation, but we also know there's going to be ongoing maintenance and upkeep to keep it running. Saying that we need to cut our car budget by 5% every year doesn't change the future needs and expenses related to that vehicle. We're still going to need to get the oil changed. We're still going to need to rotate the tires. We're still going to need to change the battery periodically. And with a mandate like this, you're just assuming that you're going to cut corners and forego maintenance altogether, making that vehicle ultimately unsafe to drive and more expensive to fix down the road.
Let's say you bought that car and you planned a gas budget based on a 50-mile each way commute, and then you move to a telecommuting job. Don't you think you would cut your family budget accordingly? And so given that, where in the governor's budget proposals did you propose to evaluate leases because of the footprint saved for state staff telecommuting?
There is a proposal for the Department of Administration, which runs the state's leases, which manages the state's space, to start looking at and get going on both of all a space plan in the Capitol, and ultimately have some resources to try to update and refurbish for what is really going to be a significantly different environment. Part of the plans for state agencies to be able to survive is assuming that each of them is going to be trying to reduce its footprint, get lease space savings. And so when you mentioned earlier about sort of a 1% increase in funding, it would actually be more if agencies weren't trying to figure out how to economize and make those kinds of savings. So that's the balance that the governor did in his budget recommendations, to try to make sure that there is savings, to try to make sure that we're being thoughtful, and that it's sustainable. There is always opportunity to do things better. I think looking at what's happened in this past year, though, should cause you pause as far as how much really has currently being undertaken, even within the current budgets. You know, I use the example of the car and cutting corners and deferring maintenance. This year has been a year of deferred maintenance as we're deploying people to do different tasks, as we're covering responsibilities and current law responsibilities that the legislature has enacted. We're doing those as fast as possible and as effectively as possible, asking people to do extraordinary things, to say that that's the norm and going to continue is kind of like asking your car, again, to defer maintenance, to ignore the fact of what is happening, that the car is being used, and it's being used extensively, and assume that it's going to still work, and it's still going to be predictable and sustainable.
The governor is looking at the current state of things, and that there's been no growth, as what I think I heard Senator Benson saying, and therefore he's asking for increase in staff in order to meet that demand, while this bill takes that current growth and digs deeper into it by 5%, making it even more unstable, more uncertain, and prevents the state agencies from being able to deliver the services that Minnesotans need.
There have been significant transfers throughout the summer going through the LAC process where federal funds are being used to cover state agency budgets as FTEs are being transferred. Are you telling me there's a gap between what we've requested from federal funds and what is being done? Are we not allocating COVID burden to the maximum extent possible to federal funds?
LAC process is making sure we're lining up the resources to make sure that we get and use federal resources to pay for those responses. This bill says that that allocation, the savings and the level of agency operations would be reduced on an annual basis going forward.
Talking about growth, we're talking about operations, we're talking about new programs, we're talking about FTEs and federal funds. This is getting to be, I think, as you said, a little bit confusing for even us on the committee to understand how this goes, but it's really confusing for our constituents. We've got, constituents out there on Main Street who are wondering what's going on with our state government right now and why they are bearing the burden of $1.6 billion governor proposal for increased taxes. Things like not forgiving the PPP loans, no conformity to that. And yet government fights even just a small reform piece such as this. Without using a car analogy, because I think we've used that one up a little bit, how am I supposed to go back and talk to my constituents about what you're saying here, why government should not bear any of the burden of this pandemic in the same respect that my constituents have?
I think you should go back to your district and say that state government is bearing the responsibility and the pain of fighting the pandemic, is doing everything it can to take care of services, to make sure that we're doing things that individuals can't do for themselves. And ultimately, we are making sure we're using every taxpayer dollar as effectively as possible, and we're making smart decisions. That's what I think we're all trying to do.
Could you just please explain, Commissioner Schowalter, why we're in a situation where, on one hand, you talk about there's savings and changes and telecommuting spaces and things, and explain to me then how it is that those two kind of actually go together, because they don't make sense to me, Commissioner.
The first is that MMB creates a forecast, a current law, a set of numbers of what we're expecting to bring in to the state in tax collections and other revenues, and what we're expected to spend based upon current obligations. We make some fairly simple assumptions based on statutes saying what should be done for those assumptions, and then we compare the two, and that's what you're super familiar with in November and February. There's a lot more work that goes on top of that to then say, okay, now that I've kind of oriented myself, whether it's the governor or the legislature, now that I've oriented myself with that starting point, where do I think I can do better than this? I can get savings here. I need to put money here. I have results that I want to achieve. That's the budget process. And so I think we're talking about them very closely together here, where we're putting a budget emphasis and a budget objective into that first piece, the forecast.
I think the world that I go to most often is my people back home who say we see in the government that they, which a lot of places have large salaries, and I mean, large amount of the budget goes to the salaries. So they say, well, they have steps. So after 1 year of full-time employment, about 2,080 hours, they get a step increase. And then if they change a lane, if they move into another area, they might get another 2%. So now they could potentially have a 6%. And then on top of that is what's called a cost of living increase, such that you might have probably anywhere from 8 to 10% increase in a person's salary over that period of time. But when I look at my Minnesota folks that are in my district, that is not their experience. Their experience is a reduction, and many times taking it out of their own retirement account just to keep their business afloat or their families afloat. And so they take a look at government and know these things and say, why? Why? Your government, we are the taxpayers, and the taxpayers out there are hurting already. So I think there's a real disconnect between where the majority, large majority of Minnesotans live and what it is like for them and what they see in government.
So my problem with this bill is just that I want to have the most accurate possible economic numbers that we can work with. Because frankly, those of you in the majority are the ones who are going to set the budget in the Senate. You're going to have the ability to do it, but it strikes me as instead of having administration come in with artificial numbers, you should want the best accurate numbers that include inflation, that include the reality of what the spending is. If you think there's something that should be cut, you're going to be proposing it. But you shouldn't just expect them to play games with the numbers, because the numbers we get then don't give us a chance to make fair decisions.
When we passed a tax increase back in 2013, about a year and a half after it was implemented, we lost $1.5 billion in taxable assets that moved out of the state. And that ends up putting that tax burden back on average Minnesotans. And certainly, even the Department of Revenue's tax incidence study shows that the business taxes proposed by the governor will fall on average Minnesotans through higher prices and lower wages.
Senate File 3 is just a common sense approach to any budget setting in any business, whether it's government, whether it's the local mechanic down the road, whether it's a school district. You have to relook at your expenses, relook at your budget set, and make adjustments going forward. And like I said, we can do it now, or we can do it afterwards. We're still in a budget deficit. And there are still compromises, there's still sacrifices that have to be made. And we're asking for all agencies and departments to not necessarily make a sacrifice, just to really look at their balance sheet and say, okay, we can make some adjustments. That's what we're asking for.
To continue following these issues and more, watch legislative coverage Monday through Friday on the PBS Minnesota channel or visit our website, www.senate.mn/media.